Howdy, Buffalo Bard here, and welcome. Alright, I'm going to keep this stream a little bit short, to the point. Yeah, as if. Uh, yeah, as many of you may or may not know, I have recently ordered a brand new 3D printer, and much to my dismay, I was interrupted during a nap earlier by the doorbell and received my 3D printer a day early. So, it is currently printing attempt number 2 for printing the test model. Yes, this looks a lot like a chessboard. Probably because it is. So what I wanted to do was take a model like from Cinti Studios or from the UE4 mannequin to whatever, and I want to 3D print them. That just seems like a thing that I'd want to do. We'll start off a couple different ways, and what I'll do here is, and the only asset that I've got in here right now is fantasy characters, and it's just going to have characters and some basic items. I've got a dagger, some swords, cool enough. But oddly don't have anything like more modern wise. Got a staff for the druid. It's going to be good enough. Just going to get the point across. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to a test map. Just because I don't want to mess with what I'm doing here. So we'll just do new level, VR basic. And I'm going to get rid of all the knickknacks. There we go. And nope, you. Let's put you at negative 750 and negative 750. Should put you right in the corner. Yep. World settings. Third person game mode. So now we'll have a place to check out our character once we put them in here. If we want to put in a person, we'll put in a, and I'm going to add in more asset packs to this, and who knows, I might actually see what it takes to create, a chess-like game, but I'm not worried about it. That was just for demonstration purposes. Once you pick out a character that you like, let's say, starting off with something simple, you've got the UE4 mannequin. And no big deal. I mean, you can just throw a static mesh into the scene and take a look at it. However, he's stuck in that A pose or a Y pose or whatever the hell you want to call it. And it just doesn't look very cool unless that's what you want. But say if you want him in a pose, since I just drug the static mesh into the scene, I can select it, go to the details panel, and select to either use animation blueprint, and it would be the third person animation blueprint, and it will stand there and do that. Not exactly what we need though. We want them to be stationary, doing something or whatever. But once you have your dude in position here, you can also select use animation asset and select an individual animation, and that's all it will do is that specific animation. Well, what we want to do is just kind of get them in a pose to where we like, and you guys have seen me do the conversion of Cinti characters over to the regular UE4 animations 100,000 times. If I were to take, say, the king here and drag the king in, well, we need him to be in some form of pose other than that. So we're going to delete him. We're going to start with, in my character folder, I've already got my animation set up. I didn't import any other animations. We're just going to do one simple system right here. I'm going to, just for the sake of things, because I know me, I do unnecessary steps sometimes just to fulfill an OCD. But I'm going to duplicate the third person idle and my pose. Whatever. So it's the idle pose right here. And I'm going to pause and rewind back to frame 0. Or if there's another frame you just happen to like. That's good enough for our king there. And I'm just going to hit apply to asset to make sure it's locked in there. So we got our king. We want him to have a sword, things of that nature. Um, we're going to need to give him all the things that we would normally do for, let's see, I want him to have in his right hand at a socket. Doesn't matter. We call this donkey dong. It doesn't really matter because we're not using this as a playable character. If it was a playable character, then we would be a bit more correct in what we're doing. And let's give him the scepter. Should kind of want it. Well, I'm going to delete that for right now. And we don't even need that. Because what's going to happen is we need to have that in there. And I'm sure that there is much more professional ways of doing this. I never said I was professional. Let that upper arm back out. Take your time. Make your pose. I'm not going to get really crazy with doing a pose right now. But if you're going to do this for 3D printing, you need to take into account that you're always going to be suspicious of overhangs and things of that nature. Now, I'm probably not going to keep this particular one right here. Let's actually go ahead and suck it back in and preview asset, and we're going to put the scepter. Now, this does not have to stay, like if you're putting in a weapon in his hand, you can put this anywhere you want, because this is not going to be a weapon that he's using. We're just setting up a basic pose for our character, and we want his hand to be there for it. As if he's putting it on the ground, or holding it while the base of it's on the ground. Could have put him in a sitting position, whatever. Oh, I'm already hating every bit of this. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here doing this. But this is the point of what you'd end up doing, is going through and setting up your visual aspect of it. Get your hand position, everything correct the way that you want to. I'm not going to bother. Like I said, this would greatly lengthen the amount of time that it takes for my dumbass to get this right. And this is not the point of the video. But this will be close enough. Yep, lovely. Delightful. So once you've got everything exactly where you want, go ahead and hit key, and actually make sure you can go ahead and hit key and apply. And you want to save everything. Again, this doesn't really matter because this is not actually going to show up because we haven't attached it there or put it all together. So what I want to do now is create an asset and create an animation from the current pose. And before I do that, let's go ahead and create a temp folder, because we're going to be using a temp folder a few times here. New, go to the content, new folder, temp. Then we can go ahead and create asset, create animation from current pose. Select your folder, and it doesn't matter what you call it for right now, because you're only going to use it one time and then convert it to something else. So having a good map here to where there's nothing else on it, zero it out, 000 for your location, and as long as everything is correct for your route, then it will be in a good usable location. Then we also used in here the scepter, and here, and I'm going to do the same thing, 0, 0, and 0, and then I'm going to go ahead and move it back to where it was in position where we had it before. Just kind of eyeball it. Absolutely terrible. Alright, with it in position. Now, a pose like this, even though this is not perfect, you've just created a tripod effect. So if you're wanting this character to stand up by itself, then this would be perfectly fine, because you now have a tripod effect, and 3 legs are better than 2, so it would stand up a little bit easier. But that's not how we're going to leave it. But we have a static mesh, and we have a skeletal mesh. We can't really use 2 together to combine it into one prop. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my animation there. The animation is not what I really need. So let's go ahead and get rid of this dude again. Grab our character. We have the king. Drag him in here to 000. And use animation asset. And use the one that we created. So we're going to hit save all. So now we have that skeletal mesh. Test, map, whatever. And we have a static mesh. You right click on the skeletal mesh, come down to convert to static mesh. And again, we're going to go to our temp folder. Doesn't matter what we call it for right now. We're going to combine it with something else later. So now we have the static mesh of our king and the static mesh of the scepter. Now what we can do is, with both of those selected, right click again and convert actors to static mesh. And we'll go back to our temp folder and call them tripod. So now that we have those two together, we can take these two, delete it, and now we have our king. Alright, we're almost ready to start exporting, but since I know that this is going to be a pain in the butt, and since what I'm doing is printing on a resin printer, then there's some things that I want to prepare for as well. I want to put them on a base. So let's move this out of the way, just temporarily. Actually, we can delete it and just put them back in whenever we want to. So save everything. I'm going to go ahead and grab, doesn't matter if you use a sphere, whatever you want for your base for them to stand on. I'm actually going to use geometries because I use them way too much. I'm going to grab a cylinder. It doesn't matter what material you use because I'm printing in a solid resin, so it's just going to be one of those things where it's going to be whatever color the resin is. Right now I'm using gray. Going to my assets, I know that I have materials, and shits and grins, I'm going to use red. Pre-select it, drag my cylinder in, 0, 0, 0, and let's give it 40 sides, and the Z height 30. So this should be what, negative 15, or excuse me, 15. That's not the final size, by the way. I still have to shrink it down, but that'll be fine for my height. You can get as creative as you want creating your base. You can do multiple layers. You can do whatever. You're going to combine it all together shortly anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and drag tripod back in here. And I'm going to zero out the first two. And we'll put him at 30. So now we can go back to our cylinder and let's shrink it down a little bit. The outer radius, let's bring it down to 100. Now let's take it to 80. Actually, I want a lot smaller than that. Excuse me. Alright, that's delightful. I'm actually going to shrink it down just a little bit more. The Z height, let's bring it down to 15 sounds good. Alright, so feet are sticking definitely into the platform. Scepter is digging into it. Let's see. We don't want any of his feet sticking up out of things. We want them good and flat, and that's good overall. Like I said, you can create whatever you can put them on a rock. You can put them whatever you want. Your characters, you pose them however you want to. And I don't like that he's that far back, so I'm going to move him up. Once I'm happy with the way it looks, and of course I'm not, but, you know, we're just going to roll on with it. Now I'm going to take my tripod and my cylinder brush, which just both happen to be static meshes. I'm going to go ahead and convert actors to static mesh. And we're going to call him the King. Okay, now that we have those two combined, I'm going to grab them, delete those from the scene, and now, where the hell did my base go? Okay, he's there. I'm not worried about collisions. We got our cylinder brush, and we have, no, we have those two. Delete that because it did not save correctly. Convert actors to static mesh. And did not save. What in the hell? Tripod is fine. Okay, because this is not a, I'm sorry, this is still a brush. I'm forgetting a step here. So under brush settings, click on that little arrow, create static mesh, and we need to create this as a static mesh. So we're going to call this our base. So now that it's a static mesh and tripod, now we can go ahead and combine the two of them together. And so now it will work, that I'm not being stupid. The King. And I see that it worked. So I'm going to grab these guys, delete them, and of course, the base is going to stick out of the ground, stick in the ground because I didn't have the pivot point set correctly. But doesn't matter. We have our model that we want to prepare to 3D print. I would have actually taken this and forced it into his hand, repositioned the hands, and make sure that there's as few little gap areas like that as possible. Not hypercritical, but you always have to be thinking about overhangs. His hands, I probably should have made sure that they were straight down so that, especially since I'm doing resin, you don't want his fingers curled up right here because that might hold resin. But keep in mind that it's going to print the base first and start doing your layers going all the way up. So it's going to be hanging upside down. So be wary that you're hanging your model upside down. So it's actually going to be printing like this in the bed. It's going to start like what you can see sticking out of the ground right now. This is how it's going to print coming out of the resin. So think about it that way whenever you're setting up the actual print coming out, but your supports are still going to be set up for this. Your supports being that you're hanging it from upside down, and you're going to want to put your supports in, and you'll see here in just a minute. So now we got this. Our model's ready to go. Let's go ahead and save all, save selected. Everything's good to go. Now, what I can do is right-click on the model or static mesh that we want to use. And let's go ahead to Asset Actions, and we're going to export. Now, what you're going to want to do is go to the folder where you're going to print and store your 3D models for this. And I'm going to save that, and you're going to have a window that's going to pop up here. And I'm going to uncheck the level of detail, collision, and that. And I'm going to check export preview mesh. With those settings, I haven't seen where this makes a big difference. But you don't need the LODs, you don't need the collisions, and you don't need morph targets. All you need is the preview mesh, and I'm not even sure if you need the vertex color yet. So click export, and it's going to save that to your folder that you chose. Having multiple hard drives here. So I've saved that as an FBX. The next step is you need to be able to take that FBX, and I'm going to use Blender. Free program. A lot of people use it. I'm too dumb to use it. Your basic scene here, you select your cube, right click, and delete. So you have an empty platform to work with. We're going to select File, Import, and we're importing an FBX. So then find your hard drive or file location or whatever. And we are doing the king. Then import. And there is our king. And our platform and everything else. If you need to make any corrections or changes or fixes or anything on it, this is a good spot to actually do it in. I do not know how to use Blender very well. But one of the things you should be able to do here in Blender is be able to adjust the size. I'm just going to scale it up a little bit. Doesn't really matter. But I believe it's over here somewhere. I will learn more about Blender, but there's plenty of videos on how to use Blender out there. So you'd want to set the scale to enlarge it a little bit. It doesn't matter. You're going to, once you figure out the size that you want in here, relative to the print size. I know the print size of what I've got to work with, but we'll start off with that. You'll be able to go in here, edit that, but again, not the purpose of the video. Now I'm going to hit File, Export, export it as an STL. And again, select the folder and drive and all that jazz where you're going to put it, and give it a name. I'm going to call this king.stl. Export. Now that you've exported your STL, the software that I'm using for a slicer is Chi2Box. Alright, I'll catch up. So with Chi2Box, click up here. I guess you could do open file here, but I've just been clicking right there and open the king. This is why it's important to resize it correctly, because this is the size of my model, and that's not what we want. But we can hit scale to fit, and I'm not going to leave them that size. You could if you want to, but I'm not. I'm going to go ahead and scale. Lock ratio. Let's go to about 1500. It's kind of small. Once you figure out your dimensions of how big you want them, adjust your size the way you want. I'm just showing just for general purposes here. Let's actually make it 2000. So that's our model on a platform. You can be as creative as you want to. I'm not very creative or smart. You can move them around on the build platform and make duplicates. You can fit 3 on here at this scale. That's not a problem. If you're printing it this way, I probably would not print it this way. Looking at the way the cape is, I would spend a lot of time. The more you learn about 3D printing and your particular 3D printer, you start learning things along the way. Problem we're going to run into is that cape. And again, as you're prepping your model, this is where learning from other people will be a lot more valuable at this point. But I don't think that I would like to keep that cape the way it is, just simply because of more about overhang. You can probably get by with positioning so that you don't have too much of the angles in the back area to where you're going to require extra supports. Another thing you want to do is I'm going to bring this up by 5 millimeters, get them off the ground, and then you can go and add your supports with platform. You can manually do your supports, manually adjust your supports as you need to. If you think you need more supports in a certain area or less. Again, this is going to be a spot where I would say watch good videos. Wow, that's terrible. Watch a good video instead of mine. Look for the red areas. You see, that's where the support you're touching is on the red areas. But if I want one right here, it's going to add it in just by one mouse click. Pretty sure that ear shouldn't need one, but look at the beard. And yeah, go around your model, check out things that potentially could be an issue, and add your overhangs. I probably didn't need that one. Check with me on my Discord channel, and I should be able to point out some decent videos for putting in supports. I'm still learning on the job, so to speak, but you want to set it up to where you get your best possible chance for your video for your print to come out nice. Doing it this way, at this scale, I might could move everything over and have enough room for 2 of these on here. But since there's only one, I'm just going to center it. There we go. At that point, there is something else you need to take into consideration. You need to hollow your model out. Once you hollow it out, you then need to give it cavities to where it can drain, because you don't want that stuff just pooling up inside there, because the resin's not going to cure all the way through whenever you're doing this. So you're going to have, if you don't put drain holes in, you're going to have solid on the outside, but you're going to have liquid on the inside, and the resin's not pretty. So that's something to think about for everything you're doing on here. Now, the base itself, I don't think is going to be a problem. But the legs are not going to hollow out good enough. So there might be some, there's going to be some leftover resin probably in the legs. They're just too small to really do much with. But this would be a good spot right here for adding it. So I'm going to add a hole, or dig a hole here, and the size 2mm, and we're going to dig out, give him a butthole, not hollowed out or too deep to dig. Alright, well, let's increase that to 6. We want to make sure that it digs a hole all the way through, so that you do get the drainage there. Same thing for your base. I would probably put a little bit bigger holes in the base. Probably wouldn't have been a bad idea to do this while it was still straight up and down either. Dig hole. You can actually make these holes bigger. Damn it. Add hole. And you can put a couple in there. If you know about where your center is, then putting one in the center wouldn't be bad. One hole may be good enough. You may like more holes. You may like less. But I'm just going to put a couple in. Scroll up. We got one right there for his butt. And looks like we're going to have some inside the scepter. I don't think this could be that big of a deal. Yeah, we're able to get through the neck and into the head. Well, that's good. So then you can actually run slice. Again, I'm not going to keep this model, but once you run your slicer, if you've got your software configured, or this program CheetahBox configured correctly with the price for the resin and everything else, showing that on the default machine that I've got set up, it's going to take 12.7 milliliters. It's going to weigh 13.9 grams. It's going to cost 44 cents in resin, and it's going to take a little over 6.5 hours to print. So that are that. I'm actually going to delete that. I have some other models that I'm looking at for playing around with. Again, I need to go back in and rescale them. And let's go ahead and rotate that one. Now you can actually manually enter it in. -90. And scale. I want to make this a little bit bigger. 150 seems to be pretty good for like the Tiger, without going in and actually doing some other changes. If you go too big, it's just not going to fit at 200. So let's leave it at 175. you always have to think about the little things like overhangs. How is it going to print? Um, Holes. So once you choose to hollow your model out, now if you're doing an FDM printer, it'd be different. You're then thinking, do I want it to be solid? Do I want a certain amount of infill? And the software kind of takes care of that for you. So I see a couple problem areas in this model that would need to be addressed for proper resin printing, that is. So if you look right here, the this hatch. As I start peeling back the layers, small little tiny hollow area there, not that big of a deal. But we see right there, it doesn't go through. So you're going to end up with a bubble right there on top. So what I'll do is I'll dig a hole and add hole. Now, did that go all the way through? Doesn't look like it. So let's do that again. Dig hole, depth. Let's try it at 10 millimeter. Nope, not deep enough. Nope, try to click up here. No, I'll try it at 16 millimeters. Still not deep enough. Damn. How much resin you gonna have me wasting there, bro? It's not even gonna be seen. Well, I'm gonna just have at it here. That should be good enough. So we get into here, then we got the turret, and then the main body. So we need to get a big hole in here. So I'm going to go ahead and dig a hole. And I'm going to make it 15. And to me, what does it look like? I don't know if it's just a render issue or what there that's playing tricks on my head, but I don't think that dug deep enough. Yeah, we got this at 42, so yeah, that should be more than enough. It still doesn't look like it, but we're gonna assume that it is. And then the bottom of the tank. Now it depends on if you're gonna have people picking it up and checking out the bottom and that kind of stuff of how big or how many holes you've got. I would say probably we'll take this back down to about 15. The size of the hole, I would say probably 3 millimeter, 4 millimeter. Near the corners, and that's just my best guess. Make it easier to drain. You could put one hole, you could put 2 holes, you could put 4 holes, whatever you want. For me, I'm just going to put holes in each corner. You can always come back and fill those holes. All right, so that's basically what you would end up doing, is going through and looking for holes, looking for sections that would potentially trap the resin. See this box right there? The 2 boxes on the back. Spend some time. It depends on how good you want your models to come out. I mean, if you want something to look nice, take the time to do it right to begin with. And we'll go with a 2mm hole here. Honestly, it wouldn't matter to me if these mufflers were dug out. Yeah. I'd probably just bore holes all the way through the mufflers there. But you got the idea. Being able to just go through and search for problem areas where you would be trapping too much resin. Because if you're trapping resin inside your body of your model, you're wasting resin. You might get away with it being perfectly fine just sitting on the print bed like this. It's showing that it's only contacting here and here. So if that's the case, then you might want to rotate it. So you get more contact. But you know what? You can always just take it and raise it up. I would give it at least 5mm, 5 here, and then just throw some supports on it. I would actually try to make sure that your bottom is flat instead, so that you're printing on the tracks. You got more surface area for it to hang on to. But you're going to need supports for the barrel of the gun anyway. It probably wouldn't hurt to go through and check your barrel, add some more supports. You think these are putting supports down here, you're going to have to snip these off. And I guess you can, it looks like a turkey belly. Whenever you see them, you'll see a little tiny pock mark where the support was. So hopefully you get the idea of what you can do with these and how you can set them up, how you can convert them. I said I'm not going to keep any of these. Right, we can close you. But the programs that you need, Cheeto Box is the slicing software that you use. It comes with the Elegoo Mars printer. You can use it for a lot of other resin printers. Blender, free program. Use it to convert from FBX to STL. And with Unreal Engine 4, once you've got a static mesh ready to go, all you have to do is just right click, Asset Actions, export, give it a happy location to go to, and then uncheck everything in here except for Export Preview Mesh. A vertex color, I just left that in there just for the hell of it, but that's the primary one. You don't need root, map skeleton motion to root. You don't need morph targets, you don't need collisions, and you don't need level of detail. The only one you definitely have to have is the preview mesh. Then click export and you're good to go. Alright, hopefully this helped. Hopefully I didn't wind out too long. It was still at 45 minutes. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you have any questions, come to my Discord channel and we'll work through the problems and see if we can make it happen. Well, thanks for watching.